Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Randy. Apparently you are on. So I guess we're starting, I hear 2 dots from the top. So we're kind of right in middle of a Shakla V'Tarya right now. But again, the question, right, the Gemara basically brought a brisa. We're in the context of Kiyum Shtaros, right? And the brisa basically said, what happens if you have 2 people that were Edom on a star, but they died? So now the only way to do Kiyum Shtaros is either someone else, other Edom have to come in and say, we know these people, or Edom have the signature. Well, tomorrow we'll get into this a little bit more, but they have the signature from somewhere else. That's how you do Kiyum Shtaros. But the brisa said that the end of the brisa said that if we're basically not relying on these Edom's testimony because Beis Din has another way of confirming the signatures. So then, so if they have another way of doing it, so then these Edom that are coming in saying that, basically disqualifying the Edom on the star, they're not believed. And the Gemara said, what does that mean they're not believed? Does that basically mean that we're going to now let this guy collect, using the star? But we have 2 Edom coming here saying that it was a bad star, that the Edom were bad. Right. So the first answer was, in the same way that when you want to be mazim Edom, you need to basically be able to, confront the witnesses. They have to be there. So too over here. So Amrle Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says he basically just doesn't understand. He says this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Ilu havu kaman, if the original Edom that had signed on to the star, if they were here in court, and then comes along the second cut of Edom, and they said, psulim hayu or krovim hayu or whatever they say, hava of course we'd have a trey, right? So hashda delesnahu. So now that you're telling me that the 2 original Edom are dead and they're not here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Good.
You look great, Levi. You look great.
Ilu havu kaman dilma havu modeluhu mehemni. So what we're saying is, what Rav Nachman is basically saying is, I don't understand. Had these people not died, had they been here, and 2 other Edom come in and say krovim, hayu or whatever it is, of course we would look at the trey. So now that they're not here, all of a sudden we're just gonna not believe the second cut. What if the other 2 were here? Rav Nachman says the second cut that are coming in, they're not even saying that they're necessarily lying. All they're saying is maybe they were a nusim. Maybe the first 2 that signed on the star, maybe if they were here today, they'd say, you're right, we actually were a nusim. So now that they're dead, we're just all of a sudden gonna disregard the second cut? Of course not. So Elam Rav Nachman, Oki trey lahadi trey. If you look back at the brisa, what the brisa said was that, if we have another way of basically saying, if we have another way of confirming the star, ein elu nemanim. And the Gemara assumed that what that meant, elu nemanim, is that umakbinim be'bashar, that you would collect on the star. Comes along Rav Nachman, he says, no, that's not what we're saying. Of course, it's the tray versus tray, and we're not going to collect on the star. Rather, what we're going to do is we're basically going to say, we're not going to tear up the star. What we're going to say is, if this dispute, whatever the star is about, if it's about metaltalin, so then we'll say whoever has the chazak can keep it. If the dispute is about karka, if it's about land, so then we'll say give it back to the mocher. But the point is, there's no way we're just going to disregard the second cut of Edom that's coming here saying that the first people who signed on this thing, they were bad Edom. And Rav Nachman says, Midi dahava nifsei dvar shatya. This is similar to something that we saw with the case of a man whose name was Bar Shatya. And if you recall, back in Yavamas, this man actually came up. But this man, Bar Shatya, was a person who unfortunately was dealing with some sort of mental illness, and whatever it is, it sounds like at some points he was lucid and he was okay. At other times he wasn't, and maybe it wasn't clear to everyone. He was schizophrenic. I don't know exactly what we'd call this. But the point is, he was suffering from this thing. So there was a case where the Bar Shatya Zavin. One time Bar Shatya sold something. The Gemara's Mahura it was a piece of real estate. Asu Beitrei, Amri Shushotazav, and comes along 2 Edom, and they said, listen, his sale wasn't a good sale. He wasn't, he was a shota when he sold this. Asu Beitrei, and another 2 people came in, Amri Shu Chalimzav. It's not true at all. He was totally fine. He was totally lucid when he sold it. Amar Ravashi, so what do you do in this case? Oki Trey, Lahadi Trey, Oki it says Mamona, but the gear says Ba'oki Ara. If you look at the bays, Ba'oki Ara b'cheskes Barshat, and that's actually a critical point. So it's a tray versus tray. And again, if it was metal to land, then you would say whoever has the chazaka, whether it's Barshatya or not. But the point is, because it's land, no, you specifically give it to the mocher, you specifically give it to Barshatya. And the Gemara just concludes and says, below Amran, this that we're going to give the land to Barshatya, that's only true islay chazaka de avase. It's only if it was like family property. So we knew that this belonged in the Barshatya family, we'll give it to Barshatya. Leslie chazaka de avase, but if this wasn't family property and Barshatya, at one point bought it, so I'm reading Shushota's oven. Maybe the Shushota's oven. The same way that we're gonna maybe say that he was a shota when he sold it, maybe he was a shota when he bought it. So why would you give him the chazaka? Maybe it wasn't even a good purchase whenever he bought it. So the point is, the assumption here are that the Gemara is making is that this was family property. This was in the Barshatya family for generations, and now it's unclear. Listen, it's clear that when he sold it, he was okay. No, I'm good. Then fine. But if there's a tray, and some Adam are saying that he was okay, and some Adam are saying that he wasn't okay, so we're not going to listen to any of the two Adam. We're going to establish, put it back to the chazaka, and that's how Rav Nachman is understanding this case over here as well. When you have two Adam, right, that are signed in a shtar, but they're no longer here, they're dead, and two other Adam come in and and say they were krovim or whatever it is, Rav Nachman basically says you have a tray, and therefore you leave it to the chazaka. But one of the things that I guess we said in yesterday's shir that I guess the Gemara is going to go back to now is this concept of ein mezimin as edom ela b'fneim, right? So I don't know if we have any attorneys here.
Just want to ask them.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so then they died, and then who gets the property? The family, the original?
So it's exact. So if we're dealing with a piece of property, then it generally goes back. We say the mocher.
family, yeah.
The mocher is the one who's the most.
Oh,
Yeah, and if it's metal, and if it's money, then it's who has it right now. So there happens to be a concept.
money is different.
Money is different. There's a concept in our Bill of Rights that the accused always has the right to confront his witness. So it's kind of like a similar idea here. So I'm about ein mezimin as edim ela b'fneim. When it comes to hazama, you can't have edei hazama unless the people that you're accusing are here. So what's edei hazama? Two people come into court and they say, Shimon's dead. Reuven's the one who killed Shimon. Right, comes along two other Adam and they say, I actually have no idea about the substance. Reuven may have killed Shimon. I have no idea. But you guys, the Imanu Hisim complain, you guys clearly didn't see, you're bad witnesses. That's the case of Hazama. And Ravo says that when it comes to Hazama, we're only going to believe the second cut of Adam if the first cut of Adam are right there. But this is arguing with what we said yesterday, that in contrast to Haklasha, we don't need the first cut of Adam to be there. Two Adam can come in and say, no, you said Reuven killed Shimon. Reuven didn't kill Shimon. I mean, Shimon died some other way, or some other person killed Shimon, or whatever it is. So when it comes to Haklasha, you don't actually need the first Adam there. When it comes to Hazama, because again, the first cut of Adam are really on trial here when it comes to Edei Hazama, right? They're the ones who, if this is all true, they're going to be killed, or they're going to pay money, or whatever it is. So they need to be there in person for Hazama to work. When it comes to Haklasha, it's not so much the case.
That's what you say, Tchilas Hazama. I thought that's just Tchilas Hazama.
That was yesterday, right?
Yesterday, right.
We're kind of arguing on that now. We're saying Rav Nachman Bechlal just said, like, I don't understand that at all. So Rav Bo is saying that's really not true. When it comes to Hazama, it's absolutely true. You need to have the Adam here in court if you're gonna be mazim them. When it comes to Haklasha, not so much. But he says Hazama shelo b'fneim. But if this is a case of Hazama shelo b'fneim, so again, two Adam come in and said Reuven killed Shimon. Two other Adam come in and say, I don't know if Reuven killed Shimon, but the people that were here yesterday, they're not here anymore. The people that were here yesterday, they definitely didn't see it because they were with us. That's not good Hazama because again, the Adam aren't here. But Nihida Hazama lohavi, Haklasha miyahavi. That is good enough to at least no longer kill Reuven, right? The bottom line is this is still at least a tray, and therefore, whoever killed Shimon, or if Shimon, whatever happened, but Reuven's going to be okay.
But in the case of the property of Barshatya,
Yeah.
we're talking about a Kahashin.
Yeah. This was just a side point. Yesterday, we happened to mention Rav Shesh's answer was Haklasha Tchilas Hazama. We started talking about Hazama. Do they need them? So this was kind of a postscript to that discussion, but it's just kind of it's a bit of a digression.
Yeah, but we're dealing here with Kahasha.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in yesterday's brisa, we talked about whether we have another way to confirm the edus in the shtar, we said either these people are coming in saying, yes, that is their signature, or the third way of happening is Bezdin has some record of these people's signature. And it was interesting. If you go back to the Brisa, the Brisa was kind of very wordy. It had a very specific case. It said, "Oh, shahayak sav yadam yotzim imakom acher mishtar shakar alav irv huksuk Bezdin." It sounds like the reason why Bezdin has a record of this shtar of these people's edim is because there was another shtar that there was all this confusion about, and we had to like figure out what happened, and that's why Bezdin was able to kind of figure it out. So we're going to pick up on that note. Amar Mar. Im yesh edim sheksav yadim huze. If we have edim that say that no, this the first people that signed in the shtar, even though they're dead, it's clearly that's their signature. Oh, shahayak sav yadam yotzi makamachar mishtar shekara lav error. Or we can confirm it another way from a different shtar where there was all this confusion and people said it wasn't good, and then we had to clear it up. The hooks like the bezdin einem manim. So the Gemara, so the Gemara kind of picks up on that. Why the Brisa have to be so specific about the case? It sounds like kara alav error in lo kara alav error lo. It's not enough that Bezdin kind of knows from some prior, shtar that these are good witnesses. It had to be a prior shtar where people complained about, and there was a whole thing, and then Bezdin had to clear it up. Why does that have to be the case? So the Gemara says, we say Ye'alei l'Rav Asi, Dam Rav Asi ein mekayim in a shtar ela mishtar shekar alav error v'chutzpah Bezdin. We'll never just trust signatures that I guess Bezdin has on file somewhere unless these signatures were one time subject to some sort of dispute. They have to, at some point, someone have to say, no, these are bad signatures, and they have to clear it up and get testimony, whatever it is. And then once it was clarified in court, now we can use those signatures going forward. And just to be clear, right, if you have edim on a shtar and you have to do kiyum shtaros, right, those people can obviously come in and say, yeah, that's our signature. Or other people can come in and say, yeah, those are the signature. We're only talking about this third method. If we don't have the people themselves and we don't have other people to come in and we need to rely on Bezdin's databases of shtaros, we're only going to rely on a shtar if at some point in the past Bezdin had to like really do some due diligence and really dig in and confirm that it's a good shtar. So Amri Nardai, kind of a similar concept. Ein mekayim in a shtar. Again, we're not going to do this third method of kiyum shtaros. Ella mishtei ksubos or mishtei saros husha achlam balen gimel shanam u'meshufi. Again, it's not going to be like Bezdin has one example of these guys on a shtar. We have to have basically Bezdin has to have some, not only a database, but of these people that signed on the shtar, they have to have signed on multiple stars. So Bezdin has like a record of like these guys, we know their signature, we have multiple stars, they've testified to multiple fields already. Not only have they testified to multiple fields, but after they testified, we know that the people have been muhsik for a number of years, people haven't complained. These are good edim. And you kind of,
they may not have signed together on those things.
Yeah.
You might need a whole bunch of documents.
and the impression that you're getting from this Gemara is like, and this makes sense, right? People weren't going to come to like me and be like, hey, I've got this transaction. Do you want to sign? They'll probably go to like the Rav of the Shul. They'll go to someone in the community, someone who's probably constantly being asked. So Bezdin has like a bit of a record. Like this guy, right? People know Ramatinki's signature because he signs on a lot of things. So it's easy for Bezdin to kind of like come up with that thing. And that's kind of, I think, what they're saying is we're only going to rely on this method if like we kind of have a record. Amr of Simi Barashi, Ubiyoti mitachas hidei acher. Also, keep in mind, when we say that Bezdin has a record, the actual shtaros themselves aren't sitting in Bezdin, right? They're sitting in people's homes. Bezdin needs to have a record of who signed, then they got to call that guy in and say, hey, that shtar that you have at home, can you bring it in? So the point is, even though we say Bezdin needs to, these people needed to have signed on a few different things, it needs to be where it's not the same plaintiff calling the same witness 3 times, right? You don't want a plaintiff saying, oh, no, this guy, he signed on 5 stars. I got them all in my house. I'll bring them all in. And because what we're worried about is if the guy's got 5 stars in his house, he can get pretty good at forging the guy's signature, right? So it's only going to work if Bezdin has a record Bezdin has a record of these edim signing on multiple stars of other people, and they can, bring it in. But Abel Miyad Atzmo lo. So the Gemara says, I don't even understand that. Ma'ishna tachas Yad Atzmo. Why are we so concerned if the plaintiff himself has these stars at home? Dilo Dilma's Yufim Mazayev, right? Because the concern is that he knows what this guy's signature looks like. He has all the stars at home. He can forge it. But mitachas yidei acher nami Dilma azal b'chaza azav v'ziyev. if the guy knows that Rebbe Mateki's signature is on X, Y, and Z star, so let him look at those stars and then forge it too. But the Gemara says, and again, like we kind of spoke up, if you have the stars at home, you can sit there for a week and you can practice. If you don't have the stars at home, it's a lot more difficult to kind of know what it looks like and go to someone else's house and look at the star. So that we're not as concerned. All right, the Gemara now is going to kind of shift gears to kind of an interesting. This brings me back to my law school days with evidence. But the point is, the Gemara is now going to say Tana Rabbanan, right? What happens if you have a person who I guess is in some scenario where he knows this thing might end up in court one day and he doesn't know when, so he decides to take really good notes about what happened that day. The thinking that if I'm ever called to testify, I can bring up my notes and remind me of exactly what happened. So Tana Rabbanan, Kosev Adame Dusto al Hashtar, a person can like write down, his edus on just a piece of paper in his house, who made allow a filach kamashanim. And then later, if he needs to remind himself, he can read his notes and then go to court and testify. And this is really a chiddush because, as Rashi points out, I think the pasuk, right? Rahman Amar mi pihem lo mi piksavim. The Torah says that edus has to be mi pihem. So you would have a havamina that a person can't necessarily use his notes to remind him. He has to testify off his memory. But well, it's not really. Again, maybe it's 10 years later. So you're saying, I mean, I kind of remember, but I'm definitely being reminded by my notes.
You can't just send them a letter. And that's your testimony.
Yeah, so that's the question. I mean, where does this fit in? I mean, is this really his memory or is this his notes? So the Brisa says a person can write down his notes and then testify about it even years later. Amar Rav Huna, uhu shezochra me'atzmo. Rav Huna says that's true, but he has to remember it too. Meaning, you're right. If you look at Rashi kind of, maybe it's good to see this Rashi inside. Zochra me'atzmo, so we're, 8-9 lines up. Zochra me'atzmo, below re'iyas hashtar, niskar ktsas ne'edus me'ela. You have to remember. So again, maybe, and again, when you come to Bezdin, they're going to grill you, right? They're going to say, what color shirt was this guy wearing? What day of the week was it? So maybe you can have your notes to kind of remind you of some of these details if it's years later. But you have to. You're on the honor system, I suppose. But you have to remember. You can't solely rely on your notes. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he's a little bit more forgiving, Rabbi Yochanan, and he says, Apal Pisha Ein Zo from Yatzmo. You don't really have to remember, but again, if you see in Rashi, the way Rashi explains it, he says, your notes can kind of jog your memory. Even if you really don't have a memory of the incident that well, but you have to read your notes and then remember off your memory. You can't like read your notes and be like, I guess this is what my notes say. This is what it is. So it's a bit of a machlokas Huna and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan seems to be a little bit more forgiving, but again, everyone agrees that you can.
Your notes before
you can go over your notes beforehand, and as long as you then remember, it's good.
That's
So
not considered PX up.
that's not considered PX up.
So,
That's
but-
still considered PM.
Even though the Gemara is calling this a star, you don't need 80.
You're right. This is not notarized.
You
Yeah,
would think that if there were 80 on it, that you could say you could read it then and know that it's good, right?
yeah. No. So it's clear that this is you're not like notarizing
Right.
anything. This is literally just like your notebook that you have at home.
Yeah.
So Amar Rava, the Gersa changes it to Rava. Shema mina mid Rav Yochanan that Hani Bei Trey Diadi Sadusa. What if you have two people that saw something? Uman Shichabinai, one of them forgot. Madkir Chad and Chabre. The other aide, the same way notes can remind someone, the other aide can say to the first aide, "Hey, remember when so and so happened? We're about to go to court. Let's refresh. Let's remember. Let's talk about this." And that would work, which again is a pretty big chiddush that the other aide. So Yibaylahu, based on that chiddush of Rava, who's really saying it based on Rabbi Yochanan, Yibaylahu, Atzmo Mai. What about the Baldavar himself? What if the person who's going to be, who's one of the Baldavar says to the aide, "You remember how this went down, don't you?" And the guy's like, "Not really." I mean, can the Baldavar himself kind of remind the aide or no? So Rav Chaviva Amar Afilu Atzmo, absolutely. If the guy can use his notes and the guy can use the other aide, even the Baldavar himself. But Mar Bered Rav Ashi sees it more like Eddie, and he says, Amar Atzmo lo. And the Hilchasa Atzmo lo. And the halacha is that the Baldavar himself, can help. But important caveat, the Tzurba Merabanan, who, if the aide is a Tzurba Merabanan, then we do trust him, even if he's kind of reminded by the Baldavar himself. All right. And the Gemara is going to give a little story that illustrates this. Of Ashi, or Ashi once was supposed to be an aide for Rav Kahana. He had testimony for Rav Kahana. Amr Lay, so Rav Kahana said to Rav Ashi, meet up here in Ar. Hi, Sadusa. So, we're about to go into court. I mean, do you remember? Amr Lay, lo. He said, if I'm honest, I don't know what you're talking about. So Rav Kahana said, what do you mean? How wasn't it like so and so? Like, wasn't it, Amr Lay, lo yadan. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. The so Ikka Rav Ashi, then Rav Ashi remembered on his own, and Isidle, and he came into court and he testified. Rav Kahana was like dumbfounded by this. I mean, he thought that Rav Ashi didn't remember, and he's just kind of going based on what Rav Kahana said. And maybe Rav Kahana was thrilled, but at the same time, he's like, how are you doing this? Amr Lay, but Rav Ashi said to Rav Kahana, me sabras kasamikna. Do you think I'm relying on what you told me? No. Anahu Ramayan Afshai. I went back and I thought about it, and I remember. But the point is that the story here is that if it's a Surim Mirabanan like Rav Ashi, so even if you're kind of reminded and your memory is jogged by the Baldavar himself, who in this case is Rav Kahana, that would be okay. And honestly, from here to the Mishnah, it goes on a bit of a digression. It's kind of a random Mishnah, but at the same time, it's going to just bring out stuff that we've been talking about in terms of memory and how long people have memory and how long people can testify based on memories. So bottom line, there's this Mishnah, Tanan Hasam, and this is a Mishnah in Ahalos. So this is going to get complicated, and it's all about Tumah Vatara. So Hatalulios, you have these mounds, mounds of dirt. And
The question is not this farm.
the question, so maybe they're makeshift farms. So you have these mounds of dirt that apparently were all over the place and back in the day. And there was a concern that maybe, we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara, maybe it was like a Friday, whatever it is, maybe someone was embarrassed for some reason, and they may have, instead of burying someone in a proper cemetery, they buried someone in these mounds right on the side of the road. And therefore you have to be concerned, right? If you don't know better, you have to be concerned. Is there tumah or is there not? So hatalulios, these mounds, hakrovos, if they're close to either the city or the road, echad chadashas, echad yeshanos tameas, whether they're new or whether they've been there for a while, you have to be choshesh for tumah. The harachokos, but if these mounds are far away, and the Gemara is going to define all these terms, what does it mean krova, what does it mean choko, what does it mean chadashos, what does it mean yeshanos? But if they're far away, then chadashos taharos. If we see it's a new mound, then we'll say you don't have to be worried that it's tamah, but yeshanos tameos. But if this mound's been here for a long time, you do have to be choshesh. So the Gemara says, Esahu krova. Sorry, the Mishnah. Sorry, we're still in the Mishnah. Esahu krova. When we said there's a difference between if it's krova or far, what does it mean krova? Chamisha amma. It means 50 amos from either the derech or from the city. Again, the Gemara is going to get into it. Bezuhi yeshana. And when we say something is old, what does that mean? Shishim shana dibra Rav Meir. Rav Meir says if we have a Sora that it's at least 60 years old, that's yeshana. Rav Yehuda Omer, he disagrees on both. Rav Yehuda says krova, she'ain krova heimenu. There's no objective 50 amos. It's the first one of the mountains. That's what's considered krova. Everything that's past it, even if it's within the 50 amma, it's not considered krova. And yeshana, what does it mean when something's old? She'ain adam zofra. So again, just putting this all together, the halacha is like this. You have mounds, right? We say there's a difference between whether the mound is nearby or whether the mound is far away. If the mound is nearby to a city, to a road, then regardless of whether it's new, regardless of whether it's old, we have to be choshesh for tumah. But if the mound is a little bit farther away, whatever that means, whether it's 50 amma, if it's a little bit farther away, then if it's new, we don't have to be choshesh. But if it's old, we do have to be choshesh. So the Gemara says, my ear, my derech. What does it even mean? Ear, derech, what are we talking about? Ilema, ear mamish, and derech mamish. We're talking about a mound that is near a city, a mound that is near a road. So, misfeka, mimach sakina, and tumah, you're telling me that any single mound that's within X feet or that's not within X feet of a city is choshesh for tumah? These Mishnayos are written in Eretz Yisrael. We don't want tumah all over the place. I mean, we have truma, we've got kachim, we've got kohana, we've got all this stuff. Mama Reish Lakish, Ela, Mitzo, V'tara, Eretz Yisrael. Reish Lakish said, I think this is in Nazir, but the idea is that Ela, I think, means a pretext. We basically try to find some pretext and specifically go out of our way to not make the land of Eretz Yisrael tameh. Because again, for all these reasons, we don't want a lot of tumah that, obviously if we know there's a kever somewhere, there's a kever somewhere, but if not, we're not looking to like misafek, make everything tame.
Well, don't we say, Suffolk Tuma B'Shus
B'Shus-
Harayim Tahara?
So again, if we have a legitimate suffix, but we're just talking about a mound. I mean, we don't have any specific reason to think that there was a kever there, right? So we wouldn't want to just have these suffix tumas all over the place. I mean,
There are
Apparently.
caveats
But
in
it's
that
B'Shus
clause.
Harayim, so we
Doesn't
should
matter.
consider.
So then I think like
There are
Ozzy's saying, I think when you have a legitimate suffix, fine. Meaning you know there was a body buried, you don't know exactly where it was. Fine. Here you just have a mound. We have no reason to even think there was a body
Exactly.
buried there.
Exactly.
There's the mound. I mean, but the Gemara is going to explain. The point is, it can't be every single city in Eretz Yisrael, every single road in Eretz Yisrael. That can't be. So the Gemara says, Amar Reb Zeira, ir asmuch basic forest. We're not talking about every city. We're talking about, I guess there were certain basic forests, and the cities that were nearby those basic forests, that's what we're talking about. The derech basic forest. We're not talking about any road. Literally the road leading up to the basic forest. So if you have a mound on the side of that road, you have a mound near a city that's right near the basic forest, that's where these halachas apply. So the Gemara says, Bishlam at derech basic forest. I can understand that derech is the derech leading up to the basic forest. Dezimnin Dimisrami Bein Hashmashos. Umakru Kvaro Batel, what's going on? Maybe you have, someone died on a Friday, you're doing a levaya, right? And you just literally don't have time to make it into the basic paros, but you have this tel, which is on the road to the basic paros, so you bury someone there. The Gemara said, I don't really understand. What's this case of the ear that's nearby the basic paros? Kill you the basic paros, just go to the basic paros. So what are you burying someone? So the Gemara says this is going to make the whole mission make a lot more sense. Amar Rav Chanina, mitoch sha'anashim kovros sham neflame. Unfortunately, you have a mother that miscarried, and therefore she wants to bury her nefel umukti shchins or sand, or you have someone, an amputee, he wants to bury his limb. So the point is, they don't want to make a whole spectacle about it. They don't want to go to the basic paros. There is going to be a levaya here. They want to bury their thing and they want to do it privately. So the point is, a woman like that, ad chamishim ama azla ihi lechuda, right? If she's in the city, she wants to go near the basic paros. She's in the city. Up to 50 amos, she'll go on her own and she'll bury her nefel in this mound. But
she won't go
more than 50 amos, she's not going to do it herself. She'll go with someone else. And then maybe they'll go to the basic paros, or they'll go, So the point is, if it's within 50 amos, we don't really have the information. It could have been a mom, unfortunately, had to bury her nefel, or a person wanted to bury his thing. And therefore we have the suffix, but it's specifically within 50 amos of the city. If it's more than 50 amos from the city, then we'll assume someone went with her, we'll know about it. So therefore, if we know about it, of course it's coming. If we don't know about it, so then, we'll, we don't have to be choshesh misafi. Sorry, so tfei, more than the yamas, the bara inish ba'adal, the basic baras azla. Hilkoch tuma be'eretz Yisrael lo machzakinan. And just to bring it first full circle, that's, therefore, we're not just, randomly misafek, making half of Eretz Yisrael tamei. But the point is, again, this was all one massive digression. And the one thing that we wanted to pull from this entire Mishnah and all the discussion afterwards was Amar of Chizda, Shma min Amar of Meir. What did Rav Meir say in the middle of here? What does it mean, Yeshana? It means 60 years. He says, Haisa dusa ad shitzin shana midker, tfei lo midker. Right? So in this whole discussion of someone using their notes to rely on it and someone using the Maldavar to rely on it, the point is what Rav Meir said in this Mishnah is 60 years, people kind of remember where things are. More than 60 years, they don't. 60 years.
I remember from 60 years.
And,
Hey, I remember from 60 years. It's my short-term memory.
so there you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's telling the truth.
Every TV program.
So there you go. But the Gemara says it's not even really true, right? Because maybe not. The Gemara says no. Hasam, the Gemara says it's really not a good comparison. What are we talking about in that case? We're talking about maybe someone remembers a levaya that once happened years ago. Again, a guy didn't commit this to memory. A person was probably a kid at the time. Does he remember? Does he not remember if there was a levaya specifically? This tells us, that tell. But where a guy's an aid about something significant, it's very possible they'll commit it to memory. And even 70 years later, the guy might say, no, of course I remember whatever happened. If the guy was,
I know I was when Kennedy was shot.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are certain things that of course if someone remembers.
I was September 11, 9/11.
9/11, whatever it was.
Everybody knows what they were doing.
So I don't know if we can do the Mishnah or we can.
Sure, yeah. But
So let's just finish the Mishnah. So Zeh Omer Ksav Yadi, V'zeh Ksav Yado Shel Chaveri. V'zeh Omer, Zek Savyadi, V'zek Savyada Shachaveri. So again, we're in the context of Kim Shtaros. We have a star, right? Star says whatever it says, and now we have the Adim come in. One of the Adim says, yes, that is my signature, and that is his signature. And the other guy comes in and says, that is my signature, and that is his signature. Is this good or is this not good? Hooray, Luna Manim. You almost have to ask, what's even the Havmin? Of course, this is good. So the Gemara is going to get into that. But what about Zeh Omer Zek Savyadi? The Zeh Omer Zek Savyadi. Each guy doesn't know the other guy, but they say, listen, that's definitely mine. So now for each of the,
I don't know the other.
I don't know that. So for each of the signatures, we have one guy, right, saying that it's good.
His,
So
You
the
don't
Mishnah
have-
says, Shrichen Litzarif Yoam Acher. Bottom line, Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe basically says, listen, you always need two Adim on each of the signatures. So in the Resha, right in the first case, we had two signatures. The guy counts as his own person. He says, this is mine. And the other one is that guy's. And the other guy said, this is mine. And that is the other guy's. But where neither guy can speak to the other guy, Rebbe says you need a third guy to come in and vouch. No, they disagree with Rebbe, and they say this counts. All you need is each guy to say that it's my signature, and we'll stop.
Yeah,
Can we arrive?